All right, continuing with trying to put some basic servicing stuff for the Nanchang CJ-6 online. And in video format, we're gonna do the wheel bearings. First off, you're gonna have to take the dust cover off. And then the next step will be to get this nut off, which you take the bolt off here, and then you can unscrew the nut. On this wheel, which is the right main, it's reverse threaded because if the wheel, rotates in this way, it's going to put tension on the nut this way, which is typically unscrewing. So on the right side, the right main, it's reverse threaded. All right, we're doing the left main. The right main I already did. And on the left main here, we got the dust cover off. You can see that. So the next step is going to get this bolt and the nut off. All right, we got the bolt that's through the wheel nut off. And now you get the wheel nut. So on the left main, like we talked about, the left main is normal. So normal lefty-loosey, righty-tighty type. The size, I use an adjustable wrench. It's just bigger than 1 3/4 inch. So you need a pretty big adjustable. But anyway, we'll pop the wheel nut off. There you go. And then this is the first cover. There we go. So that's the bearing right in there. The first one, that's the inboard bearings. This goes in just like you see it. It kind of makes a cup on the way out, so don't put it in the wrong way or it won't work. And then you can see this is the inner felt. So when the felts come, when you order them, come like this. I took one out, so that's why it's in like that. This inside ring, that's just for cutting. It's not a real one you use. The middle one here is this one on the outside. Right here, can't grab it, there it goes. That's this guy. And then the largest one here, that goes on the back side, and we'll show you that here in a minute. And then the wheel just kind of slide out like that. You can see the bearings coming out already. Okay, the wheel's off, obviously. We got the outboard bearing in here, inboard bearing sits on this guy. These are your brakes right here. We'll talk about getting this off in a minute, but first we'll look at the wheel. So this is the outside of the wheel. Your inboard bearing, your inboard bearing sits right in here. We had our felt, the metal cap, and the nut and everything on this side. Flip it around, look at your outboard sight. Here's the race for the outboard bearing, and here is that large felt. It sits right here on the outside of this guy. It just tucks in back behind. So you want to clean it all out, get all the old grease out of here, old grease off of there. And then for the bearings themselves, what I've been using is this guy, which will set the bearing in there, and you push down on here and it forces the grease up through, and it'll push the old grease out and repack it real nice, and it's pretty clean. I've been using Mobile SHC 100, as you can see there. I'm not an A&P, consult an A&P and do your own research for which ones you want. A&P that I work with says this is the best stuff, so that's what I'm using. All right, we'll grab the bearing then. Here it is. This is the one that was inboard that comes off as you pull the wheel off, because it's outboard of that. So you just set small end down in there like that. Get this kind of centered up, and then you just push. And it takes quite a bit of strength. There you can see, whoops, you can see some of it coming through there. Works pretty good. I'm gonna pack it a lot because this grease is, I don't even know what kind of grease it was, so we're working on swapping it out to the Mobile SHC. All right, let me just pull this out and clean this mess up a little bit and get all that black old grease out of there. For the outboard bearing, it's wedged down there pretty good. That happens. So we're gonna try a technique that I just learned about from Keith Harbor Flipper up in Avcraft, and that's to take a cold pack, stick it on the axle for a little while, short while, so that the axle cools, contracts a little bit, and then take 2 flathead screwdrivers and just kind of stick it in behind, and don't pry, you'll wreck this the backing of it, but you can just kind of twist it to try and pop them off once it's cooled down. So we'll give that a shot. All right, well, holy smokes. Cold pack only took maybe 60 seconds. 2 little flat screwdrivers, wedge behind, and not wedge, like just stick behind and then just turn it. And we got this sucker loose, man. There you go. And then if it sticks at all, it should slide back on. You can cool it to get it back on, but a little grease in here, it should slide on. There you have it. All right, we got both bearings packed and ready to rock. To put to put it back together, the outboard one is larger than the inboard one. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but it's a little bit bigger, so it actually slides right over the front. And I tried to get it on the back, and looks like I gotta ice it again. So I got the ice pack on there, chilling the axle back down so I can slide it back on. When you get into this stage, make sure you're putting them back together correctly. So the bearing backing plate piece, the lip goes towards the tire basically on the inboard one, and ironically the smaller one does this exact same thing once we get the tire on. So both the bearing plates kind of cup towards the wheel or towards inboard. So we got that, and then the bearings themselves, if you forget, you can always just look at the tire. As you can tell, it's getting dark, I got my light on. But if you look at the tire anyway, it's larger on the outside, smaller on the inside for both sides. So it's gonna make kind of a V. So you got one bearing going this way and the other bearing, the other bearing going in like that. So just make sure you stick it in the right way, or you're gonna have to fight and pull it off again to get it back. All right, to get the inner bearing on, what I ended up having to do is I cracked 2 more cold packs, and it probably took two minutes or so holding them on there, and then it did slide right back on, the bearing did. I threw the tire on and kind of pounded it with my hands a little bit just to make sure it's seated. Now we'll get the inboard bearing on, and then I'll show you the felts in a second. All right, pro tip for myself is don't take video or start one of these things when it's about sunset, because now it's dark out. Anyway, we got the cap back on. You can see it's cupped. We can see it's cupped out. I got the wheel nut on, and we got the felt on. So you put the felt on first around it, and then you slide this in. And the problem with it, with brand new ones anyway, if you reuse the old one, if it's in good shape, then it'll seat and be beautiful and easy. Brand new ones, it needs to kind of work and compress itself a little bit. So it'll fit just perfectly in this ring, but it's gonna be too thick for this ring to go in nicely. So what I do is I just take a standard screwdriver here and just kind of grab it and twist it and try and pull it out before I tighten it. So just kind of, like that, and you can work it. Obviously push it in a little bit further. You kind of work it around, and then with the new felts on, it's gonna be real stiff because it's got to break in those felts a little bit. So, but it's on there with the wheel nut, like I said, and we got it tightened. You want to find that, you want to find that hole. You can't really tell that there's a hole there. You can see the threads there. But anyway, that's the through hole for the bolt. That's our safety to keep the wheel nut on so that the wheel nut doesn't come off and make the wheel fall off. All right, we'll get that next. All right, there you have it. We got the wheel nut on as before. We got the bolt going through. It's got a nylock on this side, so that's how the bolt is safetied, but this is probably a good pre-flight item, obviously, just like on your Cessna, making sure the cotter pin usually is through that. You could probably use a cotter pin, except the parts manual says bolt. Then we got the dust plate back on with all the screws back together. Rolls a little bit, so looks like it should work out fine. My tire obviously needs to be cleaned. Doing some grass stuff, it's all dirty. There you go. If you got any tips or anything like that, throw them in the comments. I can update the video. Or if I did anything wrong, please let me know so I can, 1, fix mine, and 2, fix the video. Have a good one. Happy flying.